I uncover the treasures hidden for decades in one of County Durham's most secretive castles.
Oh, wow! Oh my gosh. So touching history here. I couldn't put a price tag on this. It's overwhelming. It's wonderful.
I'm Chris Jackson, and this is Inside Out. Tonight we're in search of treasure, and one that's lain hidden in the darkest recesses of one of County Durham's least known monuments. When I was asked to help uncover the mystery at Brancepeth Castle, how could I resist? Not far from Durham stands a magnificent castle, but few have heard of it, and fewer still have been inside its walls. But the keepers of Brancepeth Castle have sent out an intriguing invitation. I and two other guests are simply to arrive and will be shown a secret treasure that for decades has lain undisturbed in its depths. Hi, Oliver must be.
Hello Chris, nice to see you.
Thank you.
You're going to need one of these.
Really? Where are we heading?
This is coming down into one of the old cellars of the castle.
What on earth is this?
There's a light switch somewhere.
Wow. What is all this?
This is about 250,000 books. We bought the castle in 1978 and we moved the books up in 1981.
So what's this all doing down here?
Well, this is my father, Dennis Dobson. He had Dobson Books and he was a publisher, and unfortunately he died just before we moved in. So we now have this legacy of his work in the cellars.
He looks like a bit of a hoarder.
He was. He worked in the most unconventional of ways. This was a typical picture of our office in London, which was also our family house.
So what is here? What have you got?
Well, my father had a very wide list and some very important books. This is something I'd like to show you, because he did a book of prints of the French Student Revolution in 1968.
Paris was in turmoil. Students took to the streets protesting against capitalism and the president Charles de Gaulle. Art students used their talents to spread that resistance against the authorities. They called themselves the Atelier populaire, the People's Workshop. Oliver and I are bringing some of their iconic work out of the shadows.
Okay, so if we put them down here, you'll see what it is that we had. The students, they came over to England, met up with my father. My sister remembers them all gathered round, Gitane and all the rest of it, sitting there discussing what to do, and they produced this book and a proper record of their posters.
I mean, they look like they've been printed today.
Part of that is the quality of the paper that they used, but also it's the advantage of a cellar in a castle with a stable temperature.
So basically your dad was a bit of a subversive of his own right, but ended up owning a castle.
Yes, he was perhaps the most conservative of socialists you'd ever meet.
Oliver's next guest has found her way to Brancepeth, but like me, has no idea of what lies within. This expert in French culture can't fathom why she's been invited to a castle in Durham. But just one look, and she's hooked.
They're amazing. I can't believe the colour is so vibrant. To see them here in Durham is just fantastic. So this poster was really important. They came out into the streets. They were going to sell it, the 30 copies, to a gallery in support of the workers who were on strike. And some students grabbed it from their hands and pasted it on the walls. And then they realised, forget galleries, we need to put these messages on the walls.
The subversive imagery was inspired by the riots out on the street. They poked fun at authority and fearlessly lay the blame for the country's unrest squarely at the president's door.
It's clearly de Gaulle. I mean, you've got the képi, his military képi, the big nose, the arms out, which de Gaulle was very expressive and very authoritarian. There was art on the street in the service of the people.
Last weekend we were doing some research and we found this. If you want to come and have a look at this production package here.
Oh my God.
The string comes off quite straightforwardly.
Right.
This was my father's pack of stuff.
Oh my gosh. la lutte prolongée, so that the struggle should continue.
Yeah, of course, the joy is that this isn't a print.
No, of course not. This is the original.
This is what they brought over, yeah.
So they carried this over.
They will have done, yes. And then there's a couple more.
They're amazing. Oh my gosh. So touching history here. You can see the ink on the page, and the paper is so flimsy because the newspaper offices that were in strike, you know, gave them reams and reams of paper. I couldn't put a price tag on it. This is just, it's overwhelming.
You look almost close to tears.
Well, yeah, I get very emotional at this stuff. You know, I had no idea that there was this archive sitting here. It's not behind glass, it's here, we can touch it. It's, yeah, it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
It was an immense task bringing the vast collection of artefacts to Brancepeth back in 1981. The trucks only just made it through the gates. The whole family were roped in. That's Oliver in the forklift. The wine cellar was cleaned, ready for the collection, but once inside, it never moved.
Of all the thousands of books in the basement, we've managed to bring some together and create a library.
Even this is impressive, though.
Yes, well, this is basically a large selection of the works of my father. He was very big into music, and then he did a whole suite of children's books and picture books, and some of which you might recognise.
Ah, yes, Mr. Ben.
Seen these are the first editions that were done, that were later animated by the BBC.
Ah, here we go. Taking the armour and going through the door, Mr. Ben found himself in a small room just full of huge mirrors.
He smiled at the red night reflected in the mirror.
He laughed. Then he noticed another door. Well, said Mr. Ben, and he walked through the second doorway.
There's your childhood in one paragraph.
Indeed, it certainly is.
It's only a short journey from the Seven Stories Museum of Children's Literature in Newcastle, but even an expert like Sarah knows nothing of the first editions lying in wait at Brancepeth. Her instruction is to join us in the library.
Hello, Sarah. Glad you could come. We've just been talking about the Mr. Ben books that we did with David McKee.
This is exciting. 1967. I've seen reprints, but I've never seen the real thing.
Anything that catches your eye then with all of this?
I'm sort of a bit drawn to this one, the Elmer.
Really?
Today's story is about an elephant, and his name was Elmer. They're all the same colour except Elmer. Elmer was different. Elmer was patchwork. He was yellow and orange and red and pink and purple and blue.
Elmer that most people know nowadays was redrawn. So in fact we've got a big exhibition opening at Seven Stories, and it's celebrating the 30th birthday of Elmer, because Elmer was completely reinvented, but this is the original. Yeah, it would be amazing if we could.
I dare say we can let you have a copy to go in the exhibition. Yes, have his 50th anniversary as well as his 30th
that
anniversary.
That would be great.
So,
that seems just the right thing to do.
Really glad you invited us, but what are you going to do with all this stuff?
I think that's the big question. I think the important thing is an important body of work that my parents had, and it'd be nice to get it out there with the public.
So Brancepeth's 40-year secret is finally out.
Indeed.
Brancepeth Castle is 700 years old. Can you imagine the secrets it could tell? But this latest chapter is all the more fascinating, because within these walls the treasure is not made of gold or silver, it's just paper. Next week, crutches in the loft, how recycling your unwanted mobility aids could save us all thousands. So I'll see you next Wednesday. Till then, from Durham, good night.